please begin to put them into the chat box, and oh, there's Princeton, there's Blair Arch. But I'd be happy to talk about anything regarding selective college admission. And while you are putting those questions together, I'll just wrap up with understanding that the essays are their compromise. It's their best compromise. They know that your child's high school and teachers, you know your child better than they ever will. They have to pull together something that they can review in about 10 to 15 minutes and make an informed decision. And you would be surprised how much these essays do reveal about young people and, what how they are different from similarly qualified students. I'm going to also open this up to Interface staff. We have several of our co-workers here as well. I would like you all to ask questions as well. Anything that I've brought up, because it will help get things going. And I'm sure everybody will be edified by knowing what you have questions about.
Yeah, I do have some questions. So thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for the comprehensive insights about the essays and even about the prompts from different university. So going back to the first one question I have on the conflict and the dialogue in the essay. So you were the role of the admission officer. So for those difficult conversation essays, I'm just curious about do admission officers value a student's courage to face conflict more, or their ability to handle those disagreements with respect and reflection?
Well, I would say it's both, and I know that sounds like a cop-out, but or an excuse. There are situations that call for courage, and there are situations that call for respect and sensitivity. I had one student say once, the worst thing you can do in some arguments is win, because of the need to respect or understand and empathize with the other person. But when you face injustice, unfairness, having courage to speak, even if you have a group of friends at a lunch table and they're being mean to someone, it's a social situation. It would take courage for someone to stand up and say, stop doing this. And sometimes that's the right situation to say that.
Okay, great.
So I'm seeing here a question. I'll let you translate Shelley's. I'm going to answer the one from FD.
Yeah. So she's asking, what traits does Princeton values most?
So Princeton in particular values, and I would say Yale is kind of in this category as well. It's interesting. They value academics and non-academics. They evaluate students on non-academic achievement, and that rating has almost equal value with academics. So they're looking for objective achievement and then choosing from among the academically qualified students to build their community. Princeton in particular is going to reward emotional maturity in the essays. And what I used to see a lot when I traveled to China, and this was about 10 years ago, I would see students who had been so developed intellectually, like their brains, the focus was all on the intellect, that they didn't have the social skills and they didn't have the emotional maturity. And I might counsel parents, are like, I think you need to have this child join you at dinner with your friends and begin to engage in adult conversations so that they can grow in emotional maturity. So there are no particular personal traits that they're looking for. Let me get to the second question here. many applications might be eliminated in earlier rounds. Most essays do not even reach the admission officers. Is that true? That is not true at the top level, the top 20 ranked universities. So we have thousands of universities here. And some of them, I would say publicly supported government, state government supported schools might do some eliminations based on the numbers. So when you look at an applicant pool, you're going to think of it as layers. You have top and bottom, and let's just talk about academics. If I have 100,000 people in that applicant pool, and I can only admit about 10,000, what am I really interested in? I'm interested in the top layer, maybe the top 12, 13,000. And then I'm interested in the next layer down, less so. The number of students admitted is going to be less. Maybe that'll be another 20,000. And then the layers get fatter and fatter as you go to the bottom. Now, if my computers tell me that this application is in the bottom half academically of the applicant pool, it's a waste of my time to do anything other than check it to make sure I'm not missing something. This student may be in the bottom half of my applicant pool, but is there some special circumstance here that I need to consider? Is this student uniquely qualified non-academically? I had one student that I admitted who was already a world-renowned musician who toured and had a recording contract with a European record company. And the only person who could teach him anymore on the cello was Yo-Yo Ma, if you have heard of Yo-Yo Ma. Yeah, he had straight B's because he was on world tour the whole time. And so that was, something to take into consideration, right? But the easy work in the admission is to admit the superstars and to deny those who just aren't competitive. The hard work is in the middle. All these students who might be okay for your class, who are well qualified. That's where more time and more rounds are spent, if that makes sense. I hope that answers it. Besides the essay, are honors and awards important metrics that admission officers pay attention to, and what level of awards should go there? So we have not talked about this, and I don't know if this is a secret or not. I don't know. It's not really a secret, but colleges have to come up with their own way of figuring out what the layers of the applicant pool are. I refer to it as an internal rating system. So, for example, I might think that the academic factors that I want to rate are how difficult the high school is, the students' own curriculum choices within that high school, their performance, their GPA. And then I might also want to include, if a school has ranking class, I might want to include SAT or ACT scores. I might want to include a foreign language proficiency score like a TOEFL or a Duolingo score. I'm going to choose the academic metrics that I want to rate. And then I will have my internal guidelines, and my computer might even do it for me, but rate students based on those academic credentials. I think that academic awards and honors, and you'll see on the Common Application, they ask for 5 academic awards or honors. If you can say that you are an international champion, Olympiad participant, or an international science fair winner, or a national science fair winner, or you've already published a book, or something like that, then probably the colleges are rating those and counting those in some way. There are other schools that are going to rate the non-academic side. So again, objectively, have you achieved something non-academically? And what does that look like? In sports, you can see what that looks like and this is non-academic, so I'm not counting science Olympiads or math competitions, right? Those are academic, so non-academic. If you hold a position, like a leadership position or multiple leadership positions in your school, or if you've actually gone beyond that and have done things that are known around the city that you live in, or even broader around the state or the region, or nationally, right? My musician that I talked about, he got the top non-academic rating. Music is not academic, but he was an international professional musician. So that's it. That's about it, right? That's as high as you can go. He got the top rating. So there are many metrics. Some colleges rate as many as 20 to 30 items. And you want to start with your highest level awards, national, international. Just go down geographically. Regional, statewide, citywide, and then perhaps a school award, something like that. What other questions do we have?
Hi.
Interface, yes.
Hi, Hope. Thanks for the presentation. I'm Aris, Sylvia's mom. And in terms of the essay, I appreciate your introduction about, to mention the passion of learning. For Sylvia, we already include her, previous experience like, academic or paper publishing or, research experience. So my question is, what do you have any suggestions or, in the essay, how to demonstrate her future aspiration? I want to know, make the whole story straightforward or a full story. So this is my question. How
Right.
do we, the future, how do we need to demonstrate her desire or, aspirations in the future? How we can do that?
So I apologize. What year is she? Is she a senior this year?
Yeah, she is senior year.
Okay, okay.
This year.
So that's something to discuss with her counselor. But at this point, which she's already writing essays, you're going to see that some colleges ask for that projection into the future. How will you use a Harvard education in the future? They will ask if they want that. That's also a common thing to do a little bit in the UK schools. So at this point, you need to look at the exact prompts and follow, I would say, the narrative that projects forward from her current strengths and interests, that there's some basis for it. I think it's a common error that I see where somebody says, I need to talk about beginning community service, in the future, when they haven't done any before. And so that just raises skepticism, right? You want to build on the foundation of what you've done before, the interests that you've shown, and how might those project into the future. But again, that'll be pretty specific to the prompt. It's actually not that common. They ask you to project into college. What is it about this academic area that you want to study and why at our college? But they don't normally ask you to project beyond that. Harvard is an exception. They say, how are you going to use your Harvard education in the future, So that's a pretty specific one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Lei,
you.
did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I do have because since many of our audience they are parents, so I do want to ask some questions from the parents' perspective. So going back to those prompts, and we all know that why this college, why this university essay is a very important one. So many students, when they are working those essays, I'm just wondering, how can parents, what is parents' role, help their student avoid superficial reasons, rationale? Oh, this is high ranking school, this is Ivy school, and this is reputation, this is beautiful campus, and instead articulating a deep understanding of the fit. What is the parents' role? I know that our council, IES council, always recommend our parents do some college tour and get some experience of their dream schools.
Mhm.
What is your perspective about that?
Right. Well, obviously, whatever tours you can do, that's the best experience to have to learn about a college. But at this point, right, if you obviously we have some senior parents in here,
Mm,
sit down and help them do the research online so that they understand really what's available. I'm just going to pick a major. Let's just say you're interested in data science. What does this school do in data science? And how does that connect to my child's experience? Sit down and help them do the research if necessary so that they know what they're talking about. If your child can't really tell you why a college is on their list, you have a problem. Um, they will figure out why, but they don't know yet. So you need to go through it with them. And it just does take several hours of research for each college for somebody to say, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This college does this with their data science. I would love to do that. Um, or, gosh, this college really doesn't do anything that I'm interested in. Should it be on my list or should we change that? So I think parents can help do the research. Another thing is to really work your personal networks and contacts. Do you know like, do your friends have children who are at that school? Get your child into contact with current students. Your counselor, your interface counselor may have one. But do your friends, does your friend group have children there or recent graduates from there? Or do you have some alums? Like, do you have a friend who went to Stanford and happens to work near you that could meet with your child? Think about your networks so that your child can have a personal experience talking to somebody who's a current student, a recent student, or an alum from that school. I think those are two really good places to start.
Yeah, thank you. And we have one question.
Mhm.
What we should consider while selecting EA school?
Okay, so I'm just going to clarify.
Mhm.
There are two primary early programs. One is early action, and that's what EA refers to. And one is early decision, and that is a different program. I suspect that you're more curious about early decision, but let me explain very quickly. Early action, you simply apply early, the college tells you early, and you don't have any obligation to that college. You can say yes or no months later. Early decision is the one where you have to choose one school to apply to, and if they accept you, they'll tell you early. If they accept you, you have to withdraw your applications from other schools. There are a handful, uber selective schools, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, that have restricted early action where they want you to choose only one private early action school. But early action does not give you quite the same benefit that early decision does. Early decision is a huge benefit. So if I could just clarify, you're really asking about early decision choice. Is that correct? Or restricted early action? Okay. So the little handful of schools that have restricted early action have such high standing that they don't need to worry about whether a student's going to say yes. The vast majority of students will say yes to them, and they will come if they're offered admission. And so if you apply restricted early action, say to Princeton, then you cannot apply early action to a private school like MIT. You are allowed to apply early action to a publicly supported school like the University of Michigan or the University of Virginia. So if you choose restricted early action, you are foregoing, you are giving up the benefits that early decision might give you. And I think that's something to consult with your counselor about. I have students that I definitely say, you know what? Based on my independent judgment, you're competitive for those restricted early action schools. You're competitive for Stanford or Harvard or Princeton. And I would be okay with you taking a chance on it as long as you understand they reject 97 out of 100 students, right? And then other early action schools, as long as it's allowed as long as you haven't done restricted early action and it's a private school, you just apply to whatever early action schools you can get your application done in time for, if that makes sense. The ED choice is much more important, especially for students who do not have basically a perfect transcript, near perfect test scores, and possibly some level of recognition beyond the high school. You know, again, a regional or state level of recognition or a national level of recognition in something. Because the schools that offer early decision, which does include Ivy League schools like Penn or Columbia or Cornell or Dartmouth, they care. Any school that offers early decision is going to fill 40 to 50, maybe a little bit more, 50 something percent of their class with those early decision candidates. So I always say, think of an airplane, okay? I have 100 seats on my airplane, and I have a smaller group of people, I don't know, 5,000 people, that I'm going to let fill half of this airplane. And then the other 25,000, 35,000 are all going to compete for the last 50 seats on the airplane. So early decision is a clear benefit. And so sometimes students who are qualified for restricted early action are foregoing a really good chance at admission. You know, and sometimes I say to them, think about it this way, think about the hypothetical. If you apply restricted early action to, you know, Yale and you don't get in, are you okay if the only offers of admission you get are from the state schools? Are you okay if Duke doesn't take you because you didn't apply early decision? Are you okay if Northwestern doesn't take you because you didn't apply early decision? So if you play out those scenarios in your mind, I think you'll come up with a decision. I don't think families ever want to, I don't ever counsel them to have regrets. You know, some students are so much in love with a school that they really want to try it. And even as a counselor, if I say, I don't think you'll get it, but we're going to do the best application you can possibly do, and they're going to hate it if they have to say no to you because they're going to like you so much because they're going to see who you are. Sometimes that's the best you can do. And this is a process. You know, students evolve and change throughout the next months, and the parents do too. So we have to be patient with that. We have some questions about students applying for art. They do not have any awards. So Shelley, I'll just ask, are we talking about a younger student or an older student? Are we already at the end of the process? I do think that if students are applying for the arts, that they need to do a talent portfolio. They need their visual art, or they need their, you know, vocal recordings or their piano record. You know, they need to present their instrument, their performance in some way, because that may be their strongest. Okay, so you've got a younger one, you've got time. It does help to seek out recognition. For example, I had a student who did all the way through AP Art Studio, but we made sure that he entered some citywide art competitions, which he won recognition in. So sometimes you just need that credential, creative writing students submitting for Scholastic Awards, for example, which is a national, international award, quality of writing award. I think they have to seek that out. And I don't know what the art is, but if they apply for their art as a major, like I'm applying as a visual art major, then they probably will do an artist's statement. And if they have the opportunity to do an artist's statement, then they can write about that art there, which leaves the personal statement and the supplemental essays possibly free to talk about other things. And again, you don't want to repeat topics of essays. So it's nice if they do have the opportunity to do an artist's statement. But again, I think you're looking for recognition. If it's a writer, look for publication. If it's an artist, a visual artist, look for exhibits or contests. If it's a performance, again, look for that opportunity to present that talent. And most places do have some kind of way to do that. So I have another question here. I'm curious about in-school competitions. Do admission officers compare applications from the same school together? And if they do, what kinds of comparisons are the most common? Okay. So I always say that the most significant competition that a child has would be the other students from their immediate high school class. So one of the things that I don't think parents think about is admission offices come under attack as soon as the decisions go out. If the decisions go out April 1st for the Ivy League for regular decision, April, May, June, and into July are spent being abused on the phone and by email, letters, people showing up at the office to berate and abuse the admission office for people they didn't admit. You're not going to believe that. But I would say you spend a good percentage of your time dealing with that, especially the deans of admission. Now, why do I bring that up? Because they have to be able to make sense of the decision. If your child is say there, is it obvious if I lay your child's transcript next to the other 10 of the kids that are applying from their school, and it's obvious that your child is number 8, how can I justify turning down numbers 1 through 7 and taking number 8? Now it happens, but I have to have a justification for it. Perhaps that number 8 is that visual artist that my faculty were very excited about having in their department. So understand that the ratings systems that they have, I was just talking about those where they might rate academic achievement or non-academic achievement, that gives the admission office the ability to say to someone, if I were in your position, I would feel the same way, but please be advised that your child's credentials were equaled or bettered by 20,000 people in the applicant pool. And certainly, you've got to consider the high school context. Obviously, you can't always know where people are applying. But depending on where your child is in high school, if it's in a US-based high school, the college counselor at that high school is going to have a good idea of who's applying where. And the question can be asked, my child is thinking about applying, early decision to UChicago, but she might be happy to do early decision to Swarthmore. As we decide, is there anything that you would steer us toward? Is there a suggestion you would have? That lets the counselor perhaps give you some pointer toward, I think Swarthmore might be a good choice this year. you don't ask for an explanation. You just allow that person to factor what they know, and without telling you, because they can't tell you, to factor it in and say, you know, Swarthmore may be a less crowded applicant pool this year, and maybe you want to go for Swarthmore. Or maybe that counselor knows you have a terrible track record with Swarthmore, and it would be better to try Chicago. There are ways to try to get some information without asking, you know, who's applying where. But yeah, you have a problem if if your child is in love with Princeton and there are 2 or 3 kids in the class stronger than your child academically. You just have a problem.